Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, Epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Xander Sprague, and today I am so very honored to be joined by Fredrik Haren. Fredrik, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm the creativity explorer. So that's how I define myself. And what does that mean? It means I travel around the world and interview creative people to try to understand the creative process. I've been doing it for 25 years. It's
Awesome.
a wonderful job. It's a wonderful job because creativity is a wonderful thing to study.
It is very much. How did you get into studying creativity and interviewing creative people?
Well, I guess the short answer, but the long time span is that when I was a child, my father was a very creative musician. He played 10 different instruments. But so creativity was very important. But as I was terrible at music, so I thought, like, the message to me myself was creativity is clearly important, but I suck at it. And it took me until I was in my 20s to realize that, maybe I don't have to be creative in music. I could be creative through other avenues. And then I got really fascinated about the topic, and I decided, this is gonna be my journey. I'm gonna study creativity because it's a skill that really improves your life if you master it.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I have to say I surprise myself sometimes with my creativity, but I think everyone has creativity. It's just, I think, being open to discovering where that lies for you, and I think it's super fun.
I agree. And per definition, creativity should surprise you because if it doesn't surprise you, it's not creative.
Yeah, absolutely. So who are some of the creative people that you like to say, it was really cool to meet that person?
Well, just to put it in context, I've interviewed people in 75 countries and probably, thousands of people.
Okay.
And my answer to that question is actually usually the last person I interviewed, or one of the few last people I interviewed. I was recently in Edinburgh. I interviewed a famous jazz guitarist, and Martin Taylor is one of the best in the world, and he's self-taught. And he talked about, like, when he plays the guitar, he's actually not playing the guitar. He's playing an imaginary instrument inside of his head. And then by playing that instrument, then it goes through his fingers, and then he plays the guitar. So we were talking about improvisation, but we were talking also about this mental instrument that I think we all have. It's like one thing what you do when you create, but then there's another thing inside of your head, which is actually, it's kind of like the engine that drives whatever we do. It's like the man behind the man, the creativity machine that is inside of our brains. So we went deep.
Absolutely.
But that's just one of the last persons I interviewed. The whole idea is to interview a lot of different kinds of people in a lot of different industries. And, when you do this, you realize everyone has something to teach you about creativity.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think, as I said, some of the creativity is being open and to, like, I have this idea in my head. Now, how do I actually bring that to fruition and stuff like that? And, like, one of the things, I guess I'll say I'm proud of is when my first daughter was born. On the day she was born, I started making up a song for her, not because I thought about it, but when I was holding her, it popped in my head. So I'm like, all right, let me start to write words. And then it sort of grew, it grew from there. But yeah, I mean, the creative process is fascinating. And I think all too often, as I talk with people about their epic, what their epic is, what are these big things that you go, someday I'd like to. And I'm like, no, today is the day. Let's go out and do it. When it comes to creativity, I think sometimes people put too many constraints on themselves, right? So we'll take that jazz guitarist. He taught himself, right? So he clearly was like, it doesn't matter. I didn't take lessons. I'm figuring this out, and now he's one of the best jazz guitarists in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I like this idea, your story about the daughter, because that was an idea that just came to you, right? It wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to write a song to my daughter. It kind of just came into your head.
Yeah.
That's a deficiency in the English language. We only have the word idea for both, like, oh, I'm going to make pancakes for lunch, and something is telling me to write a song to my daughter. Those are very different mental experiences, but we called both of them an idea. And I interviewed a sculptor in Hong Kong, and he separated it from more mortal ideas, is which ideas that come from your brain. I mean, your mind. It's like, oh, I'm going to make pancakes, or I'm going to write a song for my daughter.
Right.
But, or divine ideas, which like, oh, I have this urge. It seems like I need to write a song for my daughter, which is a divine idea that kind of like comes from somewhere else, and you're just a vessel for it. And maybe we could call those also epic ideas.
We could, yeah, no, absolutely. I think all too often, people say, well, I don't know how to do it perfectly. And you were saying that your father was a very accomplished musician, and you're like, I can't play an instrument. I'm, that's not me. And so you put that, perhaps you said up into your 20s, you put that restraint. Well, if I'm not creative, if I can't create music like my dad. But obviously that's not at all the case, because yes, you're right. Maybe you can't play an instrument or create music, but there's so many other things that you've been able to create, which I think is great. And I mean, part of the reason I wanted you on is this whole idea of exploring creativity is really cool.
Yes, and the whole idea of it, actually, the name The Creativity Explorer came from my son when he was 8 years old. He was supposed to someone asked you, like, what does your father do? And he was supposed to say, my father's a creativity expert. But he screwed it up. So he said, my father's a creativity explorer, which is a way better answer. Because an explorer doesn't have an expert has all the answers, which is kind of like, I know creativity. Right? That's boring. But an explorer, per definition, doesn't have the answers, but he has the questions. I wonder what is behind. To explore, the definition is to venture into unknown territory in order to learn more about something.
Yeah.
So per definition, you don't have the answers, but you have an urge to find out. So you're exploring. You're on a journey. You want to discover something. And when you're on a journey, you're moving forward. Which is the whole, like, that's when you want to learn. That's when you're curious. So I think if you're not on a journey somewhere, anywhere, then you should really sit down and think about what's wrong.
Absolutely. And I think we're all on multiple parallel journeys and stuff like that. And my observation in having daughters and working with people of all ages and stuff is younger people are so used to the quick solve, right? If I can't solve this challenge, if I can't get done this journey in a short period of time, it's not worth it. That short attention span sort of thing. And I'm like, throughout our life, we go on these multi-year journeys. So for example, going through school, right? When you start off in perhaps kindergarten or first grade. But in the United States, you're going up through 12th grade, and then perhaps you're going on to college or some other type of training. You don't expect when you are 6 years old to go, well, I'll be done high school, in a month.
Yeah, exactly. One of the people I interviewed is a guy who studied. At the time he was a student at the oldest brewery school in the world. It's in Germany. It's been there since 15 something. It's like 500 years old.
Yeah.
And he told me that there's two kinds of people who apply to this brewery school. Half of the people who apply loves beer. Like they like to drink beer. They just love beer. And so, maybe I should learn how to make beer. The other half loves the process of making beer, like the chemistry and all the chemicals and everything. And he told me it's a 2-year course. And he said after 1 year, half of the people have dropped out. And almost all of them is from one of these two groups. Which group drops out?
The people who love the beer.
Yeah, exactly. Because they get bored of the process. It's like, now we're going to learn about the chemistry of the, like, when this and that happens or whatever. And then, I don't care about that. It's boring. I just want to drink my beer. So they quit. And the lesson here is that the people who become successful in creating anything are the ones that love the process, not the end result. So, for example, I'm a speaker, right? And I have coached hundreds and hundreds of speakers. And some people come to me and say, oh, I just love being on stage. I said, okay, that's great. It's great that you love being on stage, but you are not going to make it as a speaker, most likely. The ones who really make it as speakers are the ones that love the process of writing a speech, developing a speech, mastering the speech, and then going up and delivering the speech and learning from that and becoming a better speaker every time. So the ones who love the process of writing and delivering a speech, they are the master speakers, not the ones that just love to be on the stage.
Absolutely. I do love being on stage, but I do love I love the process of, let me come up with the idea, let me deliver it, let me master it. But then once I've mastered it, that's where the fun begins, I think, Fredrik, because that's where I get to pay more attention to the audience and see what is landing, what's not landing. Maybe I will throw this extra story in because the audience is really with me and this story will help. Or, wow, this isn't going too well. Let me cut that story, but add this story. And that whole creative process of, how do I change it? Because at least for me, every time I do a speech, there's the basic, but each speech is unique because, well, I guess I'm creative and I can improvise on my feet and go, how's it going? But yes,
Yeah. So
speaking is
the
fun.
lesson here is, if you want to become good at something, you pick the lane where you love the process of that. Because then you also, even when you fail, you're not going to care about it because you still learn something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, I talk about in my book, that failure is part of the journey. You're not going to be 100% successful. And frankly, you start off and you don't have to know exactly how you're getting to whatever your destination is. Because look, every morning you get up, you don't know every single thing that's going to happen in your day. You don't have the answer to every single question you're going to get. But it doesn't stop you from getting out of bed and starting your day.
True.
So I find it funny sometimes where people go, well, I can't do this perfectly. I can't paint, I can't paint. I'm like, look, when we learned how to write, it was a struggle to learn how to write, an A, a B, a C, but you practiced enough, but now you don't really have a lot of conscious mind thinking about how to do it.
Yeah. I was in Indonesia recently. I interviewed a musician there. He's one of the most successful Indonesian musicians and a composer. When he introduced himself to me, he didn't say, I am a musician. He said, I am a student of music. That's how he defined himself. And I think that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look at some of the professions that are, which I think are apt. So a doctor has a practice, right? Because a doctor hopefully is continually learning and going, oh, now I know this, now I can do this. I have this knowledge, and that allows me to now look and say, oh, Xander, the reason you're losing your hair is this reason or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny, like attorneys, doctors, we can practice mental health. I have a mental health practice, right? I'm certainly accomplished. I'm able to do therapy, but I'm constantly learning.
Yeah. And I think that it ties very well back to Epic. I like to ask people who work I might put you on the spot here. I apologize.
No, go, please.
I like to ask people who work in an industry or with a topic if they know the etymology of the topic that they work on. So do you know the etymology of Epic?
Well, I can tell you not exactly, but what I can tell you is what
I think you do. It's actually, I think you're aware of it. But what would you say?
Okay, well, again, when I thought about Epic, I'm like, what does Epic stand for me? And I define it as every pilgrimage includes commitment, meaning if we're doing something epic, we are on some kind of a pilgrimage to get to complete this task or to learn about whatever we're doing. So be it write a book, run a marathon, be a public speaker. It's a process. It is a pilgrimage, and it does require commitment to getting there.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. But the etymology of the word is not the pilgrimage or the journey. The etymology is story, as in a song or a story. And of course, it's a story of a journey that someone is telling. But I think it adds a level of meaning to the word. So an epic is a story of an amazing journey.
Yes.
It's not an amazing journey. It's not just that. It's a story of an amazing journey, which I interpret it as it's the story we tell ourselves. Right?
Definitely.
So, and if we tell ourselves the right story, like for example, when I decided to define myself not as a creativity expert, but as a creativity explorer, I'm telling myself the story that you are not just a creativity expert, you're a creativity explorer. You need to go and study creativity and ask people who are never interviewed about creativity. Like, I don't know, people, like I went to Mongolia, I went to North Korea, I interviewed people in North Korea because I need to explore creativity in places that had never had been explored before. And now I'm telling myself a different story. So that's this idea of what epic story are we telling ourselves about the journey we are on?
Definitely.
It will affect our decisions.
Oh, absolutely. I remember years ago, I was reading a book, and it was talking about this Buddhist monk who was working in the diamond industry in New York. And a very fascinating story. The one piece of that I've pulled with me for the last, 15 so years is that in Buddhism, there's this idea that things are not inherently good or bad. It's how we interpret what's going on. So, for example, the sun is out where you are. Now, you may go, wow, that's great. The sun is out. That's fabulous. But if you're a farmer and there's a drought, you may see the sun being out as being a bad thing. But the sun being out isn't in and of itself a good or bad thing. It's how we're interpreting what's going on.
Yeah.
And the same way that the stories that we tell ourselves, well, this was good or this was bad, defines how we react to it, how we interact with that and move forward.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll share because you asked me before, it wasn't interesting. I was just in Bhutan and interviewed Buddhist people about creativity. And they gave me such an interesting perspective because it was one of the people I interviewed. He said, you Western people, it was actually the former minister of tourism in Bhutan. And he said, you Westerners, you think creativity is about self-expression. It's like you're expressing yourself to the world, and like self-expression is like, look what I've created here.
Yeah.
He said that's not that's not the purpose of creativity. He said creativity is not outward, it's inward. Creativity is about understanding yourself on a deeper level. And I heard that and I said, wait a minute, this is so true. Because go back in your life and identify the most creative things you've done. And I promise you that those things that you choose taught you something about yourself. And
Definitely.
I would even go so far to say if you didn't learn anything about yourself when you created something, it wasn't much of a creative process you were involved in.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, that I think that's very true. It is sort of exploring yourself and discovering that perhaps you are able to do something that you didn't believe that you could do. My podcast listeners, I say this all the time. I'm a talker, not a typer, and yet I've written 3 books, and that honestly blows my mind, because if you'd asked me in university if I'd write a book, I'd be like, absolutely not. I hate writing. But I found a way to use my own creativity to create the books that I wanted to create. And it is all of them very personal journeys, How else can you write a book? It is a personal journey. When you're creating a speech about, you are just as much the speech as the words that you're saying.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there are a lot of some people who have written books that has nothing to do with them, and those you can read. When you read these books, you realize this is such a boring book to read. They just wrote this book because they thought there would be a market for it, or someone told them to write it, or whatever the reason is, and it's just meaningless. But when you feel that someone is actually learning something about themselves while doing whatever that is, even if that's a painting or a book or whatever it is, and you get, wow, this really moves us, right? So the end product is actually also better if you did learn something about yourself in the process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
By far, my best idea came to me in a nightmare in Thailand, 2 a.m. I woke up, I had a terrible dream, and I dreamt a whole movie, a whole story. And as I woke up, I said, wow, this story is so amazing. I need to write it down. And then I wrote it down. It became a novel, and it came out a couple of years ago. It's called The Invisible. But that book taught me so much, not only about myself, but my whole world view, about how I look at life, everything in that. It was it was a message to myself in that dream. And it was so powerful.
definitely. And I certainly have had really good ideas in the middle of the night, perhaps a nightmare or whatever. And it's having something to jot down, at least the bare bones idea, so that when you wake up, you're like, oh, yes, now I remember. Because if you're like, oh, yeah, I'll remember that. And then you wake up and think, wow, I had this brilliant idea, but now I have no idea.
Yeah, that happens.
It does. How many creative ideas are just still floating out in the ether there? We had them, they came to us. Perhaps we were, as you said, the vessel, but we let it go. And now we're like, I'm trying to find it again.
But those are the ideas we should chase. Those that, like I said, the divine ideas, the ones that are coming to us. Those are the most beautiful ideas.
Oh, absolutely. And it is, I can say I've certainly had a few of those middle of the night ideas, and I didn't have a way to write it down or whatever. And then I'm like, man, I regret that I couldn't write it down, because I know that was really good. And you rack your brain and go, what was it? I know it's in there, but
But I interviewed one guy once. He's a Swiss watchmaker. He's one of the most famous in the world. And he had this amazing dream after having, he had a mental breakdown. So he's, for like 6 months or something like this, he slept 15 hours a day. He didn't work. He was burnt out. And as soon as he woke up, he ate and watched Star Trek, the series, for like 9 hours straight. And then he went back to sleep and slept for 15 hours again. Or like he
Right.
did that yeah, he just slept and watched Star Trek for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally, in the middle of the night, he dreamt like a 3-dimensional watch inspired by the planet, the solar system.
Yeah.
And he woke up and he started creating this this watch. And then he got stuck, and everyone said to him, oh, that's too bad, because this is such a creative watch. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll just go back to my dream. He went back to sleep, and he came back to the same dream again, and he saw what he had misunderstood. He woke up again, he fixed it, and he created his watch. This watch was awarded the most innovative watch in the world when it came out. And it's amazing. It's like 3-dimensional. All the pieces are moving like planets around the sun. So the idea of going back to sleep and go back to the same dream again to solve the problem he couldn't solve in his conscious mind, that's crazy.
Definitely. One of the things that I love to ask my guest is, I love the concept of not yet. Those things that we want to do, but we just haven't done it. We hold out the hope that we're going to get to it. And even if we don't, we still are leaving the door open that it's possible. So for you, Fredrik, what are one or two, or if you have more, that's fine, of those sort of not yet? Maybe it's...
I'll give you the one I mentioned, the novel, because that came to me, it must be 15 years ago now. It took me 10 years to finish the novel. I have no intention of being a novel author of fiction books. But it took me 10 years to get it out. Came out on Penguin. Became #1 on Amazon in Singapore. Of all the books, out of the 15 million books, I was #1, which is very, very rare.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, great. But then it tanked. But that was never my goal. My goal is a Netflix series. This is a book about invisible people. Like there exists in the world a different human race that is just like us, except it's invisible. It's kind of like this. It's like transparent humanity. We can't see them, but they can see us. That's the plot. That's the scenario. And I know this is going to become a Netflix series, but I have no stress about it because the whole idea of writing this book is not my book. I actually didn't even want my name on it. I wanted it to say, as told to Fredrik Haren, not by Fredrik Haren.
Right.
Because this was given to me as a gift, and the book was going to come out when it wanted to come out, and the series will be made when the series decides that it's time to make it. So I'm just patiently waiting for someone from Netflix to call me.
Absolutely. I'm
also consciously taking steps to make it happen, but not stressfully. I'm like, I don't care if it takes 25 years. It will happen. I know.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great, like, I'm trying to push it forward, but if it's not today, not yet.
I wouldn't even use the word push. I'm just flowing with it because it has a momentum on its own. I'm not in charge of it. The universe is in charge of it, but I will guide it. When I get nudged to guide something, I will do my part. I will move it a little bit like this.
That is awesome. And I wish you all the luck with that. I mean, certainly getting a Netflix series is a monumental task, but I believe it will happen for you. It sounds like
it's getting #1 on Amazon, and I did that. So, like I said, this is not my project. I'm just the custodian of it.
Definitely. So, Fredrik, how can people get a hold of you?
Just Google the Creativity Explorer, and hopefully I come up.
All righty. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Really an epic conversation. So fascinating. I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And you have a wonderful topic for a podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I do really enjoy it. So that's a good thing. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And as always, remember, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.